It's a time to play. So Maiden loves to play. She wants to party. She wants to make. She wants to beautify. She wants to have sex. She wants to dance and sing and really enjoy her body and the possibilities, the opportunities of life. So this Maiden springtime is deeply energetically connected to the time of our menarche. Menarche being the rite of passage of our first period, the maiden phase of our lives. If you struggle later on in your cycle, it might be because there are some really present shadows lurking in your pre-ovulation phase that need your attention. Welcome to Wildflow, the podcast with me, your host, Charlotte Pointeau. I'm a wild feminine cycle coach here for the awakened woman who is ready to reclaim her body, menstrual cycle and feminine power, and to live, love and lead in flow with nature's wisdom. In this podcast, I'll share how you can live in sync with your menstrual cycle and life seasons, heal your relationship with your womb and rites of passages, and embody your wild feminine as a multi-passionate woman in life, mothering and business. It's your time to flourish as a cyclical being in this modern world. Are you ready? Let's flow. Hello and welcome back to Wildflow. It's great to have you here. Oh, how are you doing today? We have just passed the full moon in Aries and it's felt like a really big full moon. I've heard so many people saying that they felt particularly thrown around or emotional, or there's been lots of big moon energy influencing them this week. How about you? How have you been? Depends when you're listening to this, of course, but just checking in with what the moon's doing in the sky as you're listening and noticing whether you've been noticing the moon, how you're feeling about it, and where you are in your cycle. Whereabouts in your cycle are you today? How are you feeling being in your body today? Just taking a moment to check in. So today is day 29/1. So, my bleed is just starting to arrive, just the first signs of spotting of blood. And I'm just feeling quite energized today. I felt like I woke up with somewhat of a spring in my step, which is curious because this week I've been feeling really scattered and tired, and I've had this morning though I did say, my lower back. Like it's been a bit tender and achy this week, and I really felt it this morning, but I don't feel tired. I feel quite energized, which is really interesting. I don't normally feel like this as my bleed begins. And so I really wanted to record this podcast before I surrender to my flow, to my bleed, and drop into the moon cave, as it were, which will be when I come back to myself. And if you haven't listened to the previous episode to this, The Sacred Art of Menstruation, then go and listen to that, because that'll give you some idea as to what I'm just about to surrender to, welcome in, and really, let take over for the next few days as much as I possibly can, given that today is Friday and it's the weekend and I've got 3 small children, so it's never just a straightforward weekend. If anything, it's harder to have time for myself until they go to sleep. So that's the challenge, but that's my cycle check-in. I'm feeling grounded and calm, and I guess mentally slower, but my body physically doesn't feel tired, doesn't feel sore at all. It just feels quite, feels quite energized. So that's what it feels like to be in my body today. So today's episode is the second in a mini 4-part series, deep diving into the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. So as I said last episode, we began with the first phase of the cycle, the menstrual phase, in the episode called The Sacred Art of Menstruation, and today is all about the next phase, the pre-ovulation phase, which begins when your bleed ends, approximately a week there, give or take, into your cycle. It's when your energy starts to change. So your energy can be quite low while you're bleeding, or it might not. Like I said, I'm currently feeling like I've got some energy, but it's when you notice a shift within yourself as your hormones start to rise. And it's when your body starts to lift out of that deep inner winter rest phase. So this phase, this pre-ovulation phase is like the shoulder season, if you like. It's like the shoulder season between the two poles of the cycle, being menstruation, which is your bleed, and then ovulation, which is when the egg is released from your ovaries. So this is the halfway, this is the midpoint. What's happening in your body now is when the eggs that started to mature and ripen as follicles in the ovaries, they are now at a threshold point, and one of those many follicles is suddenly becomes clearly like the dominant follicle. And so all of the others, they stop maturing, and this main dominant follicle ripens into its full size egg in this phase. So the egg is actually the largest single human cell in the body, and you can see it without a microscope. Yep, technically you should be able to see an egg cell with the naked eye because it's about 10 times the size of the next biggest human cells, which are fat cells in the body. So in this phase, the dominant egg is ripening and growing to its full size. And this egg is going to be potentially released when ovulation occurs in the next phase of the cycle, which is the ovulation phase. And that's triggered by hormones reaching a threshold point. And we'll come all onto that in the next episode. So what's happening is that in order to help this egg ripen, hormone levels are rising, and predominantly this is orchestrated by the female reproductive hormone called estrogen, and this is being released by the growing follicles themselves. So the bigger the more follicles, and the bigger these follicles are growing, the more estrogen they make, and then the more that they encourage these follicles to ripen. And so as this egg grows, it produces more estrogen, and it goes round and round like that, so encouraging itself to grow. Your womb lining is thickening now in preparation for the egg to be released at ovulation. And this beautiful, rich womb lining is full of nutrients and everything that this egg needs to be nested and comfortable and cozy and nourished in the second half of your menstrual cycle. It's also because of the hormones rising when your cervical fluid will start to increase, so discharge. This becomes thicker, whiter, creamier. It's infertile fluid, but you'll start to notice, whereas in your menstrual phase you might not have noticed any at all because it would be tiny amounts and perhaps mixed in with your blood. Now you'll start to notice it, and it's that white cervical fluid that's quite thick and creamy like lotion, and this is a sign that your hormone levels are rising and that your body is in this pre-ovulation phase. So other signs that you are in this pre-ovulation phase. Your natural energy will start to rise, and it will start to rise slowly at first, but it's this marked shift of focus moving outwards. So in the menstrual phase, our focus is very inwards. We have this potential to be very introspective and dreamy and very in our own inner world. Whereas now that focus is starting to be pulled slightly outwards. And it's when we might notice a desire to suddenly be back out in the world as well. And this might not happen immediately for you, but you might notice a transition phase, like another separate phase or window as you move from the inwards to the outwards. A transition phase of re-emergence from hibernation as you steadily are turning back around to look outwards at the outwards worlds again. Really, you've got to feel ready to face the world in your own time. And so you can't rush this part, or it can lead to all kinds of like frustration and all kinds of challenges, which I'll explain to you, the common ones that I see. But the number one issue that I have noticed with the women who I work with privately in my one-to-one coaching, it's not actually PMS in the premenstrual phase. It's actually challenges with this phase, this re-emergence here. And boy, do I relate. I do. I have a challenge in this phase, and I'll tell you why. But even when somebody does have epic, like really present PMS, so premenstrual syndrome, and that includes mood, irritability changes, feelings of anger, even rage, resentment, like kind of irritability and stickiness and inner frustration. Can also be things like bloating and having cravings, maybe even anxiety can come up as well. So there's all kinds of symptoms that are associated with this premenstrual syndrome, as it's called, that shows up in the premenstrual phase. But I often find that if somebody experiences those kinds of challenges in their premenstrual phase, that actually often it stems back to how they experience this spring phase, this pre-ovulation phase of the cycle. So take note, love, if you are experiencing PMS, just make a little reminder, a little note to yourself to check in with how you go at the start of your cycle. Generally, are you a go too hard, too soon kind of gal? Because if so, then this is going to be a good episode for you to tune into. So often, the natural energy pattern that's commonly present or emerging in this pre-ovulation phase includes increased creativity. So as your hormones are rising and your focus is coming back out into the world, you can feel this sense of possibility and creativity, and this urge to start to make, do, and be in the world again. It can be a time of increased resilience as well, when you feel less thrown around by, sensitivities to perhaps what somebody says or what's going on in your world. You feel a bit more resilient. And it's also a time when, as your hormone estrogen rises, you have a need to be sociable and to connect with other people again. This includes intimacy with others, sexual partners, family, friendships. It might also be clients. And if you hang around on Instagram a bit like I do, it might be when you suddenly wonder, after taking time off during your bleed, like, what's going on in the world again? Like, where are all my online peeps at? What's going on in my in-person friendships and my online communities as well? What's going on? It can be a time when your brain starts to get a bit clearer. And like I say, with these ideas coming through, this creativity, you might have new ideas, big, bold ideas, all the possibilities. And this is really curious because it's the time of the maiden. So archetypally, the maiden, who's that young girl, that young 0 to 25-year-old self. she really mirrors this potential and wonder that we can feel at the world. And just to mention these archetypes, so the 4 archetypes of the female life cycle, so Maiden being the first one, it represents age 0 to 25. Then we move into the mother phase of life, which is 25 to 50, regardless of whether you have children. After that, it's post-menopause. It's the time of the wild woman or the enchantress or the Marga woman, which means magician. And that is 50 to about 75. And then 75 plus is the season of the crone. So each one of these archetypes lines up with a phase of our menstrual cycle as well. And so this phase of the cycle is mirrored by the maiden. So the maiden is young, she's naive, but she's ever hopeful and optimistic. She has dreams and lofty goals, and the world is her oyster. She's trying to work out what the world is all about and what her place is in it and what might be possible for her. Her future is all ahead of her. Anything could happen. So we can really channel this vibe in this phase of our cycle. So what can be possible for you this cycle? And if the limits that you perceive that exist to contain what's possible for you in your life, what if these weren't there? What if these limits aren't really there? Can you get into the quantum limitless world where anything could be possible? What would you do? Who would you be? How would you live? What decisions would you make? So when you embody this maiden energy, it's using this creative potential, this unlimitless potential to dream and vision and bring whatever you most desire into the world. The archetype of spring, so this is really commonly called the spring phase, remembering that we've got the biological names of the cycle, the menstrual phase, pre-ovulation phase, ovulation, and premenstrual. We've got the archetypes of the female life, which are maiden, mother, enchantress, crone. And then we've got the seasons of the year, winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And these all mirror and overlap. So the pre-ovulation phase being the time of the maiden and of spring. And the archetype of spring paints a picture of this time being for new life, of growth. It's a time when seedlings have germinated and are well and truly sprouting. So the seeds of intentions that you planted in your inner winter, in your menstrual phase, are now germinated. They're growing, they're sprouting. And I really love the analogy of gardening. I like to think of this as being a time when we would weed out some of those weaker sprouts so that the space, light, water, and nutrients that those weaker seedlings are taking up can all be directed and consumed and dedicated to the strongest sprouts. So if you love a bit of gardening like me, you'll know how that's true for heaps of veggies. You've got to thin out the clumps so that they've all got a bit more space and room to breathe and grow. And so instead of there being multiple sprouts, you just leave the strongest ones to grow. Well, that's the same here with how you direct your energy in spring, in your maiden pre-ovulation phase. So instead of directing all your energy everywhere, how can you be really discerning and choose wisely where to spend your energy this cycle? So it's a good time for deciding. So we have to balance out the maiden's eternal optimism and energy, the one who wants to go too hard, too soon, and be out in the world, partying, sleeping all day, but, being here, there, and everywhere. We have to rein that in and balance it out by thinning out our activities. So it's tempting to go hard here when we feel like we're back, baby, back from the moon cave, the menstrual phase, back out in the world. But you've got to take it slow. Be wise about where you put your energy and leave those weaker sprouts, if you like, those ideas, those activities, to another cycle when it might be their time to thrive. It's a time to play. So Maiden loves to play. She wants to party. She wants to make. She wants to beautify. She wants to have sex. She wants to dance and sing and really enjoy her body and the possibilities, the opportunities of life. So these can be some really beautiful things to connect with in this phase of your cycle. And, that might be very literal for you, but it might be just worth looking at what play means to you, pleasure, and how can you enjoy this rising energy and take that wonder and possibility into your day-to-day life with you. Now, on the flip side, as with all phases, all life stages, all experiences, there are joyful aspects, but there's also shadow aspects as well, which is where our challenges live, our fears, our limiting beliefs, concerns, things that don't feel easy and come naturally to us. This is where the darkness lives. So the spring shadows, there can be plenty of them. And like I say, there are many aspects to this phase that can bring up a lot of discomfort, and this can potentially throw out your whole cycle. So like I said, if you struggle later on in your cycle, it might be because there are some really present shadows lurking in your pre-ovulation phase that need your attention. So this maiden springtime is deeply energetically connected to the time of our menarche being the rite of passage of our first period, the maiden phase of our lives. So it's connected to how you were supported, welcomed, prepared, and guided before and after your first period, whatever age that was for you. So whether you were still primary school, or whether you were high school, or whether you were, considered young for your age, kind of average or a bit later, what was going on for you? Because the life experiences that you had in these formative years directly become a part of your life story, of your rites of passages and your menstrual story. The things that were going on in your life and the role that you played in those early years. So whether you were safe and able to be the young carefree girl maiden, or whether you had to take on some more responsibility, grow up a bit faster because of whatever was going on in your world. So whether you were celebrated and honored or shamed and silenced for who you were becoming and the way your body changed, all of these things, it imprints you with your sense of worth, your identity, the value that you perceive to be attached to you growing into this new body, this new phase of life. And it really informs the patterns that play out across your later life. So your future rites of passages and the physical rites of passages for women identifying people, it begins with, well, for all of us, it's our birth into this world. But these physical rites of passages, the blood rites, are your menarche, your first period, your menstrual journey, and that includes birth. So if you birth your own children and becoming a mother, and then menopause, which is the end of your cycle, and ultimately death. So how you experience your maiden years becomes how you experience your future rites of passages, and it impacts your self-belief to the point of shaping how you are able to pursue and prioritize your dreams, your desires, and your basic needs. So how you feel about being able to take up space as a woman identifying person. How you make decisions is affected. The things that you believe to be true about who you are. Your ability to take it slow, to rest, to trust that all is well without you needing to step in and control things, for example, that can all reveal itself in your spring phase. It can also show up as rushing back out from bleeding back into being superwoman, or perhaps you never really stopped during your bleed and you are always trying to keep pushing on and keep being superwoman. Perhaps you just really struggle to receive help and you can't delegate. You can't switch off. Perhaps you really need to feel needed, to feel useful, to have a purpose. And these slower parts of your cycle really, really challenge you. So maybe this means that you just don't have that darker, slower balance to that half of your cycle, and you never really have this sense of re-emerging because you never really went into that cave to start with. Perhaps it's about how able you are to receive pleasure or feel pleasure in your body. Perhaps you're not able to surrender to chaos and the unknowns of life. Perhaps you have a feeling that you want to do it all, be it all now. You want to be everything to everyone all the time. If this is you, this is such a common experience for so many women. I can't tell you. This comes up with so many of the women who I work privately with. The premenstrual and the pre-ovulation phases are linked. So if you do struggle in one phase, there might be things to explore in that phase and in the opposite phase as well. And this can also mean that if you struggle to feel whole, confident, loved, and welcomed in your menarche, this can reappear at your menopause. Also, childbirth. And so, as with all things, doing the deep inner work to address things from your past, how it has been, the pattern and story that's been experienced and laid out for you. It's really powerful to look at that, to address things so that you can change the future before you get there. So wherever you are in your journey, it's really powerful to be able to look back and see the stepping stones of what has brought you to the present day, to go deep into noticing, not just looking at the surface level events, but looking at really what happened, really how you felt about it, to go into these deeper layers, to feel the feelings in your body and then to liberate those feelings through, I like to use feminine embodiment practices. And I've been guiding clients to do this work for themselves and to let go of these stories and to reconnect with the womb, with their menstrual journey, with their feelings of worth and identity as the person that they are today, to reshape, redefine, to open up new possibilities for the future. It's very powerful stuff. And so, with this in mind, I would love to invite you to journey with me. So across the month of November, and this is 2021, I would love you to come and explore your menstrual journey, your maiden experience in menarche, to connect deeply to your womb story, to bring light to it, to spot the patterns and stories playing out, and invite you into a liberating, healing process so that you can essentially course correct, redefine your relationship to your womb, to your menstrual journey, to your rites of passages for the future. For your future, for your children's future, and for the future of your lineage. It's healing the ancestors before you and their experiences that are passed on, because patterns are intergenerational as well, not just through your lifetime, but through this red thread, which is this idea of the mother line. And so it's healing and opening new possibilities for the future as well. So I'd love to tell you about this journey that I have created. It's called Making Her Story. Her story, not history. Making her story. Beginning on the new moon of the 5th of November, I'm holding a 1-month journey. And this container's opening on the new moon. And at this point, you'll receive access to an online portal containing initiation, featuring ritual to set your intention, reflective journaling, and a guided dream journey to meet your inner maiden and to go back in time and to look at what was. 1 week later, we'll gather online in circle at the waxing moon on the 11th of November for a circle to share stories, wisdom, healing words, and to let our maidens be heard and loved. Then, a week later at full moon, we'll give thanks for all that has been. We'll extract the medicine from our stories and release through ritual all that is no longer needed and that we don't want to carry on with us. And then we will cast our eyes to the future, reclaiming our womb, our intuition, which lives in our womb, sovereignty, our right to choose and discern and be in control of our lives, and create intentions to revision our menstrual journey and rites of passages yet to come in the future. So this is 4 weeks over 1 moon cycle. It's 4 weeks of online course materials, including rituals, guided embodiment practices, playlists, and different practices and activities to bring you into bodily safety so that you can move and express and release what you're feeling within in safety. 2 online circles, one at the end of week 1 on Thursday the 11th of November, and then another one to close just prior to the new moon. So this will be on Thursday the 2nd of December. And these spaces will be a place to come together, to share, to ritualize and sit in ceremony together. You will be given access to a private Facebook group container to be guided, held in the community of others who are walking the same path. A beautiful, healthy, mature sisterhood space where you are safe and able to share what's coming up for you and to be witnessed in your process. There's also going to be an option for you to book an additional one-to-one space with me so that I can hold you. We can connect through feminine embodiment and journeys to explore what's really coming up for you. If you would like to have that, that's a completely optional extra. And if you would love to grab a special offer on this, then you can come and join our free Facebook community, which is called the Wild Flow Circle. And this is a community where we have got incredible women who are fascinated by menstrual cycle awareness, interested in the rites of passages, the moon and earth's rhythms, and who are together in this beautiful, supportive space. So if you would like to come over and join us there, you will get access to a member-only offer on this journey, making history. And if you don't want to join, you are able to just come straight over and enroll in Making History right now. All the links are in the show notes. This is such powerful work. I have used this process with clients, with groups, in person and online, and I have done it personally for myself. It's something that we do some of as well in the First Moon Circle facilitator training, and it's incredibly powerful. The women who do this work cannot believe all that was locked up inside. They didn't know it was there. They didn't quite grasp the power of what needed to be acknowledged, to be witnessed, to be felt, expressed, and liberated, so that they could create this new relationship with their womb and their body, to inhabit their body and to feel like they're more empowered to move through the rest of their menstrual journey and lives with full presence in a beautiful, right relationship with their body and cycle. And they didn't know that they needed to do this until they had done it. It's powerful, powerful work that's healing multiple generations. And it will set you up for a beautiful, empowered, love-filled, trust-filled, and embodied future as well. So I would love you to come and join us. We're starting really, really soon. So we're starting on the 5th of November. Come and join us. Come and join us. I hope you do. Okay, loves, I hope this episode's been useful for you to connect with what's present for you in this phase of your cycle, and also to get a sense of what can be underlying. So when we're looking at our cycle, it's not just the symptoms, like the surface symptoms. It's all these layers underneath that connect back to our past and to our ancestry as well. Your cycle holds so much power. And so if you are feeling like you want to get deeper, to get more intimate with your cycle, to really shift patterns, to enjoy your cycle more, to perhaps heal some of the emotional symptoms and experiences that come up for you, or even just to to reclaim and get more intimate with your womb, then this is going to be really, really special for you. Next week, we're going to be talking about the ovulation phase of your cycle, which is for some people with a monthly or thereabouts cycle, this will be about the midpoint. But for others, ovulation might come a bit later. And that's because ovulation gets delayed when our hormones don't rise. And so this inner spring phase, this pre-ovulation phase, can be extended, which can also be another challenge of this phase, to be honest, as well. And as somebody who's been having long cycles myself, my pre-ovulation phase has been lasting weeks and weeks. So again, that stamina and sustainability can be really challenged and contributes to some of the challenges that I feel in this time. Okay, my loves, wishing you well. Hope to see you in Making History. Otherwise, catch you next week. Goodbye. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.